Today, we're honored to share the amazing journey of a woman whose life took a severe and surprising turn that changed the way she thinks about life forever. This turning point happened not long after she turned 25, a brief time in her life that seemed packed with the carefree freedom of youth at the time. Without hesitation, she says that her days were full of snap choices she made because she was looking for excitement without thinking about it and not caring about the dark clouds that were just beyond the horizon. As a result of an overdose of drugs that offered escape but actually put her in danger, her world suddenly fell apart. Moments between life and death were so fragile that time stretched and warped, leaving her in a strange state where faith questions that had seemed so far away suddenly didn't matter. Praying for any way to be saved, she was desperate. No, not to just one God, but to many. Seeing a framed picture of Swami Sayananda, a person who had inspired her when she was in school, she looked for advice. She repeated mantras over and over, and her body and spirit clung to whatever thread of life was left. Then something unexpected happened. Her story is very similar to others who have had near-death experiences, but hers was completely different. These feelings weren't passive. She was wrapped in warmth and a strange, regular pulse that sounded like breath. Suddenly, it stopped. For a moment, she stood still, uncertain of whether she was standing on anything solid. There was an abyss around her, a hole so deep that it wasn't just the lack of light, but also the lack of anything audible. She was completely alone except for a glowing mist that came from inside her. Out in the light by herself, she became very aware of the intelligent presence there. But fear didn't take hold of her. There is definitely confusion and even anger, but absolutely no fear. It looked like her feet were floating, like they weren't attached to anything solid. When she yelled for help, all she heard was quiet. Finally, she lost control of her words and blurted out, "Can someone, for heaven's sake, tell me where I am?" There was a voice after that, as if a heavenly tuning fork were vibrating through her whole being. The voice was different from any other voice she had ever heard. Gentle but strong, the voice almost scolded her for the words she used and reminded her of where she belonged. Over time, she started to realize that this was not like other people's experiences. She was near something magical. Inquiry and questions flooded her mind. The voice offered a simple but profound response when she asked what its name was. "I have been called by all names and many more beyond them, but none truly define me." She suddenly understood that the names and titles people give to the divine don't matter. This creature went beyond those limits. When she dared to ask what gender God was, the answer was laughter. Kind laughter that seemed to fill her whole being with joy. It was unlike anything she had ever done or seen before. Her whole body felt like it was vibrating with an indescribable warmth, like she was being held in a hug that went beyond time. In reality, time seemed to stop, even though 8 minutes had passed on Earth. In the voice's words, "You are at the threshold of heaven." She finally started to understand where she was. Even though there were no gates or golden stairs, the voice told her she was where she was supposed to be, in the presence of this huge, loving force, the one who made the universe. She didn't feel the need to ask any more questions. The inevitable question of God's gender then came up. Anyone could have wondered, but the answer she got surprised her. Her laughter filled the room with a warm, resonating chorus. Deep, strong voice then spoke. "I am neither." Soon after, a soft voice whispered, "Then again, I am both." Awe struck her at the response's dual nature. She started a trip for reasons of curiosity when she was only 25 years old, asking questions that some might think are not important, but they were extremely important to her. She thought about wonders, the Bible's holiness, and whether it really explained divine truth. During her spiritual experience, these questions kept flickering in the background of her mind, each one begging for an answer. She worried that she would forget the details of this event because she knew how limited she was. Whatever it was, she wanted to write with. Instead of letting herself think about it, a calm sense of certainty surrounded her. "No instrument is required. Your memory shall suffice, for I inscribe it upon your soul," the sound said. Although she didn't fully understand the meaning of this statement, it made her feel better. Her amazing trip was proven beyond a doubt when she returned to reality. She carefully wrote it all down, paying close attention to every detail. While she was talking, doubt followed her like a cloud. Numerous individuals questioned her story and wondered if God could really find humor in such a talk. While she had been talking, the thought of having a relaxed conversation with the creator of the universe did not scare her. It made her laugh, just as it did God. Exactly why wasn't she scared? It stayed. Spiritually, she had always thought of God as a caring mom. Furthermore, she believed that a caring parent would soothe and comfort, not scare. In her conversations with the divine, she saw the humor more clearly, and she understood that laughing was how she naturally expressed herself. Therefore, it made sense that God, in all of his or her many forms and ways, would use humor to get closer to her. She wanted more of it, even though she knew that hilarious times didn't always happen. As she looked into people's tendency to be cruel and violent, her research took a darker turn. Instead of God's laughter, she felt a much heavy sadness that was like lead pressing down on her soul. It was like she was breathing in broken glass. The terrible truth came out. When humans hurt other sentient beings unnecessarily, it made the Creator cry. Her most meaningful experience was when she realized that people could make God cry. Going back to normal life made her feel alone. Because of her experience with death, she was different, and no one else could really understand what she had been through. She faced those findings on her own, unable to fully explain them to others. Although those deep realizations had changed how she thought about life. Jesus didn't care about money, church, or even prayer, she realized. Everything's Creator cared most about how we treated each other and all living things. The qualities that went beyond all human ideas were reverence, empathy, and decency. There was no cryptic handshake or code. There was only love and respect for life. After looking for meaning, she realized that death was not the end, but a change and a way to get to another world. Just as the barrier of birth marks the end of life in the womb and the start of a new one, death also meant changing into something bigger. Near-death experiencers often talk about spiritual growth and ascension, but her story had a deeper meaning. It was a sincere call for everyone to work together. She knew that everyone was gradually making their own amazing story as she looked up. We value your time and attention. You can get more stories like this by subscribing to our channel and turning on alerts. To stay up to date on our future adventures, stories, and discussions, do the following. We appreciate your constant support, and we're glad you're a part of our group. We appreciate you coming and look forward to sharing more with you.